The investigation into the assassination of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk is taking dramatic turns. Utah Governor Spencer Cox revealed on Meet the Press that the suspect, Tyler Robinson, is not cooperating and has invoked his Fifth Amendment rights. The alleged gunman's roommate, who was also reportedly in a romantic relationship with him and transitioning from a man into a woman, has been shocked by the killing and is fully cooperating with investigators. Authorities are still searching for a motive, combing through Robinson's digital life, ammunition inscriptions, and social media activity for answers. Charges are expected tomorrow, and officials are urging calm in the face of rising political tension. Let's bring in Roshini Rajkumar, attorney, political strategist, and host of The Crisis Files. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Kevin. So many layers to this, and as you've described, very, very confusing.
Yes. The fact that Tyler Robinson is not cooperating, I think when people first thought, oh, he's turning himself in, his father's bringing him in, and that he would likely be cooperating. That is not always the case.
It's not always the case. And the thing is, once someone probably in the immediate, and I am glad he turned himself in, but as he's sitting there pondering what could he be facing, he does have that constitutional right to plead the Fifth. Now, that also means that all the evidence needs to be locked tight. Things aren't always as they seem, even though in this case, things are pretty stacked against Tyler Robinson. And it is a positive for the prosecutors and really that community that the family is cooperating, because that's also not usually the case. And that's when things can get very murky.
Yeah, and the law enforcement officials are working quickly to get like those palm prints tested and the footprints tested and whatever other evidence they can find.
Yeah, the forensic evidence is important, especially if he did indeed live a few hours away from that university. Any kind of DNA that shows him on those grounds is very, very suspect and absolutely ties him to this event and being on that campus. So those things are really important as before they get washed away or things like that, correct? So those are important things. And this is where law enforcement does its job. The justice system is supposed to do its job. There are going to be state and federal charges here. And I understand tomorrow he will have some of those first charges in place that he will show up in court for to face.
Let's talk a little bit about the state versus federal charges, or maybe in this case there will be both. The state has the death penalty, and there's a federal death penalty as well. When they try and make a decision on which way to go with charges, what comes in play?
Well, I mean, it's been pretty clear that a lot of people are calling for the death penalty here. And, that is allowed at the federal level and in some states. And in this case, Utah does have that. So, what ends up happening is the different jurisdictions want to respect one another. Who has the stronger case? What are the statutes? At the end of the day, sadly, if Tyler Robinson, it was absolutely him on the other end of this gun, the visuals on what happened were so graphic. It is so obvious that it is a case of murder. So the statutes that apply there are going to be the ones that they look at. We're not really looking at any kind of negligence or other kinds of statutes that could play in. So I'm expecting at every level first-degree murder charges. The other piece of this, or the other layers to this, Kevin, could be, did anyone assist him in any way? And so that's also what investigators would be looking into now. So it is really good that his roommate/partner, his family are cooperating, because then it seems less likely, not necessarily slam dunk, but less likely that they cooperated in any kind of conspiracy. But those are the kinds of things that both the feds and the state prosecutors will look at. They will definitely cooperate. You've seen this in a lot of other cases where federal and state law apply.
Yeah, a lot is being made of the gunman's roommate and fully cooperating with investigators, but that roommate has said that they were shocked by what happened. What kind of other evidence might they be able to get from the roommate?
Well, I mean, this is where proving the veracity of what the roommate is saying is really important. Could the roommate be saying this now because it was so terrible what happened? And, it is true. There are cases where whether it's your roommate, your romantic partner, you may have some things planned that you've shared with no one, either to protect them or whatever. Maybe you're just so involved with your own thing that even someone as close as a partner isn't going to know. So I don't want us to rush to judgment on that roommate, and let's focus on the fact that there's a lot of information both this roommate and the family can be giving, and you better believe that is what investigators are digging into. Also, we've seen that he had such an online presence and a gaming life, so they'll be looking at a lot of those kinds of things, which I am no expert in those worlds, but there are traces and there are all these different things that they could be looking at to make connections and see if anyone else could have been involved in this.
I suppose the relationship could be important to finding a motive. Perhaps they talked about things that would help investigators put a motive with this crime. How important is motive to conviction?
Yeah, I mean, it is very important because you look at, when you're looking at statutory crimes like a first-degree murder or second-degree murder, the element of intent is what's involved. So if there is a motive that basically shines some light on premeditation, you've heard that term used in the law, and that gives us an intent, why someone would do something. So it wasn't an accident. I mean, whomever shot that gun that killed Charlie Kirk, that was no accident. That was definitely a focused, targeted shot. And it was a good shot. And the very fact that Tyler Robinson and his family, they've all said they grew up with guns. Gun life is part of Utah, mostly in a safe way, I would presume. But he definitely knew how to handle those kinds of weapons. So that's probably not a big question on anyone's mind. Could he have been the one? Did he even know how to use guns like that? And it seems everything is pointing to he did. Now it's really linking all the forensic evidence together and what they found on his person, what other kinds of things around and on the ground, and the weapon itself.
What are we to make of the bullet inscriptions? Does that lead towards premeditation again?
Well, I don't know in this case if that's necessarily considered in that way. I think there are a lot of times when people, if indeed the motive was to make some kind of example out of Charlie Kirk because there was such a political disconnect or a belief or values disconnect between the alleged suspect, Tyler Robinson and Charlie Kirk, maybe it is putting some kind of signature on things. I mean, Kevin, the BTK killer that was such a big case for Michigan, when there is that signature that a killer would use. So I would sort of put it in that bucket. That also shows that they wanted to ultimately be known for what happened to Charlie Kirk. So all of those things play in. Will be really interesting as they dig into other people connected, the meanings behind a lot of things, and it will be interesting. I mean, Tyler Robinson may be pleading the fifth now, but he may eventually talk, and he has that right.
Roshini Rashkumar, attorney, political strategist, and the host of the Crisis Files. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
No problem.